Hey, Sydney,
Hey Samuel,
what would you say is your dream job?
I'd really love to work in murders and executions.
I don't know. Most of the guys that I've talked to really hate working in mergers and acquisitions. The only guy that really seemed to like it was my buddy Ted Bundy.
I'm glad you're here, honey Sunday. I'm going to get right into the message. I'm going to tell it like it is, as they say. Oh, I heard a hallelujah. Did you think I don't know what the hell is going on? And a lot of strange places. Where in the hell have you been? Hell fire! Hell fire! Hell fire! All right. Okay, there's something else, too.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Satire Fire podcast, where we're keeping you up to date on what the reservation scene is looking like at Dorsia. We're on that wait list. It will happen sometime.
I bet Paul Allen has a res.
I'm Samuel.
I'm Sydney.
And this is a podcast all about satire. This week is an interlude episode, so it's not going to look like our typical episodes, but it's still going to be about satire. It's still going to be really fun. Generally, whenever we are doing a series of episodes, we pick a book and we do 3 episodes about that book. And we just finished a 3-part series on the book American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. And our next series is going to be Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. And in between those 2 series, in order to give us a little more time to prep for it, and in order to give you a little more time to read the book if you so choose, we are doing a interlude episode about the 2000 movie adaptation of American Psycho, where we're going to break that down, talk about it, say how we feel about it, and kind of compare and contrast it to the book and see what our experience was with it. But before we get too far into talking about this movie, Sydney, do you have anything else that you have done or read or watched lately that you'd like to talk about?
So, I almost don't. I'm undecided. I'll let you choose. So I was considering talking about Taylor Swift's new album because that's a recent development in the world of media, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, the discourse about this album online has been pissing me off recently. And I don't even know if I want to venture into the conversation. So I could also talk about my final thoughts on Normal People by Sally Rooney, because I realized I never came back and said how I felt about it.
I am very eager to hear the Normal People review, and then maybe if you have nothing next week and the discourse has calmed down, you can talk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I guess just for anyone who's just super eager to know, I did like the album. As with any album, especially Taylor Swift, I have like some songs I like, some songs I don't, but it's not my favorite album, it's not my least favorite, I don't know. Anyways, people are crazy. But yeah, Normal People. So I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And
Hell yeah.
if anyone if anyone's been listening for several weeks and you remember when I said like, oh, hey, I'm going to read Normal People, it's my first Sally Rooney, I was really concerned about the lack of quotation marks around dialogue, because that's like a pet peeve of mine. And honestly, I just ended up loving it so much that I stopped noticing as time went on, which was great. Yeah. My favorite thing about it is that it's a very character-driven novel. And I've read character-driven novels before that I didn't like, because basically for me, I think that like if you're going to do a novel with very little plot, you need to really tap into who those people are that you're following. Like you need to I need to understand how their mind works. I need to understand how they would respond to different situations. I need to like either deeply like empathize or at least sympathize with like their life experience. They need to be complex. They maybe need to be not necessarily good or bad people. Like they need to be just like very human, and you've got to do that well.
Yeah.
That's what makes a character-driven novel interesting. And this one did that so well because, like, not really much happens. But for me, like, what I loved is the way that she described, like, just the human experience of life. Like, the way, like, their mental health and, like, how they were thinking about things, but also the way they, like, moved through the world and noticed the world around them. Like, especially with Connell, there was, like, times he would be describing, like, what he was looking at. And it was, like, I could just, like, it was like I was in his body experiencing the world and the way he did. Like, I don't know, it was just really well done in that sense. And that made me love it. And also just, yeah, the way that she described, like, their emotions and their reactions to other people and social situations was just, personally, I thought kind of like a masterclass in that type of writing. Like, I was like, wow, like, this is really, it really impressed me, honestly. It wasn't like the best book I've ever read or anything, but I was just like, really, with that specific aspect of it, I was just so impressed that and it was also, like, easy to read. It wasn't, like, it's not like poetry, waxing, flowy writing necessarily, but, like, it was so human. So yeah. Excited to read more Sally Rooney. And I didn't really say what that book is about, but I feel like everyone knows what that book is about. So
yeah, I mean, it's just like a will they, won't they kind of story that stretches over two people's, like, entire childhood and young adult life.
And I didn't even like honestly, I remember thinking, like, as I was approaching the end, I was like, I have no idea what's gonna happen, but then it dawned on me that I just, like, didn't really care. Like, I didn't care what happened, actually, just because I got to see, like, I cared about them. And I was like, that, actually, a book that I compared it to when talking about this was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Because that's also, I think, meant to be more so of a character-driven novel. But it fell short near the end in terms of, like, character development. And, like, it's almost like the author started using plot devices instead of character devices because they, like, weren't sure. We had this conversation before, but, like, weren't exactly sure how to proceed with, like, the characters' experiences in the world. And this one didn't do that. Like, the whole time it was just, like, I was getting to know the characters and how they moved through life. And at the end, I was like, I don't really care if they end up together, if they don't, or whatever, because, like, that's not the point. I don't know. So that was just, like, really interesting, and I really liked it.
Yeah. I think that I had mentioned it when you first brought up that you were going to read it, but I definitely think that Sally Rooney as an author and also Normal People as a book is one of those that I put into the category of, like, deserving of the hype. Like, there's a lot of books that have been caught up in the book talk trend of this is, like, the book of the week or the author of the week and stuff like that, and people are always talking about it and posting about it. And Normal People was definitely one of those books. And so I was pleasantly surprised coming away from it going, okay, actually, no, this book actually is very good and deserves to have gotten the attention that it got. I don't think that it's necessarily a perfect book, and I don't think that it necessarily lived up to all of the hype. I think that there's some people who were a little bit too effusive with their praise for it. But the gap between the public sentiment and how good the book actually is much narrower than I feel like it typically is with those kinds of super hyper popularized books.
Yeah, I would say, like, I was, like, surprised as well because I was like, there's no way this is, like, that good. Like, but it was just, I think that specific aspect of it did really, like, make me love it. I was like, I really like the way you're describing, like, the inner workings of these people. Like, that's just...
Yeah, I think that she just does really, really good character work. And that is, from her first novel up to the most recent one, has been the case that she's very good at character work. But I have been reading quite a bit. I just finished a pretty long book that I have been reading for a little while that most people are probably familiar with. It is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I haven't actually watched any interviews with her to hear it be pronounced out loud, but R.F. Kuang, this is the second book by her that I have read, the first one being Yellowface. And if you're unfamiliar with her as an author, she has been very public about the fact that she appreciates a wide range of literary styles and has the intention of, for as long as possible, never writing two books that are in the same style. So, Yellowface is a satirical literary fiction kind of novel. This book, which I believe is her first book, is it's the first book in a fantasy series. And the thing that makes it stand out is that while most fantasy books are kind of styled and aesthetically pointing towards medieval Europe in some ways, where you've got the castle designs and stuff like that, you've got the swords and horseback and all that kind of stuff, like it's all vaguely European at the very least. The Poppy War is very much pulling on the aesthetics and the mythos of China. And the book's central conflict is kind of meant to represent the invasion of China by Japan that occurred. And if you're unfamiliar with the history of that, I'm not going to get into it on this podcast because it's a little complicated and very dark. But I'd recommend looking into it if you think you can handle some dark history. But it is a pretty standard coming of age fantasy novel of someone who is special in some way, has been chosen in some way, and then grows in some way so that they are the only person that's capable of defeating the challenges that the country is facing. With the notable exception of it's different from all the others because aesthetically it's Chinese instead of European. And I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. It felt a little bit too formulaic at times, where it did very much fall into that coming of age chosen one plot devices that are commonly used. And so I kind of felt like I knew what was happening and what was going to happen, which for some people that's great. That's what they're looking for, is something predictable. But for me, it's not necessarily what I enjoy the most in a novel. But regardless, I thought that it was fun, and I would recommend giving it a shot. If you're somebody who has read a fair amount of fantasy, I think that this could be an interesting change of pace because of that different styling that it's got going on. Or if you are someone who's interested in trying out fantasy, but the backlog of all of these epic fantasies and historical fantasies and stuff like that is a little bit intimidating, this feels like a very approachable way to get involved without feeling as though you are being left out from the various insular fantasy cultural references that tend to happen when you're in the more European sphere.
I've never read either of her books, or in either of those books, but I have Yellowface on a list because satire. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I've heard things. Poppy Wars, is it Poppy Wars? Mm-hmm. Poppy Wars is something that I've seen on TikTok and Book Talk and stuff, and yeah, I don't know.
It's one that I think, in contrast to normal people, didn't really live up to the hype for me. Mm-hmm. I think that the fact that it is different aesthetically and is based on Chinese mythos gave it it gave it something to latch onto for publicity reasons. and that helped it take off as far as people's interest and people talking about it. Whereas it's not as good as some other fantasy books that I've read that I've not heard talked about quite as much. So I think that it doesn't live up to the hype that I was expecting going into it, but maybe I'm not the target audience of being a huge fantasy fan or whatever.
Yeah. Is there romance in it?
Vaguely. The main character has a couple of people who at various points seem as though they could be a love interest. And this is going to be a spoiler alert, so skip forward 45 seconds if you don't want this spoiled, but none of them ever pan out. She doesn't actually have any relationships with anybody. So there's like undertones, but it not explicit.
Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I've just recently been like thinking about like the subgenre of romantasy, and how that's like really changed the fantasy book landscape in an interesting way.
I think that just romantasy as a whole has not just changed the fantasy book landscape, it's changed the book landscape
like,
as a whole.
So many people are reading who never read before to read romantasy, and
more books are being bought because of it. I think that it's leading a lot more towards publishers wanting to produce series of books instead of standalone books. Like I think a lot of books are getting turned into series that didn't necessarily need to be series.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's so many books. Like, I mean, a lot of them are like trilogies, I feel, which I can get behind a trilogy. But like authors like Sarah J. Maas who are like putting out like 10 books per series. I'm like, hey, what? That doesn't need to be normal. I don't think we need to be doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's going to be interesting to do a retrospective at some point of this era of book publishing and book readership, because I don't think that it's necessarily going to last forever. And I think that what it looks like on the other side is going to be very different from what it has looked like up until this point. But enough about books. Fuck books. We're here to talk about movies. We, like I said, are going to be talking about the 2000 movie adaptation American Psycho, which generally whenever we're doing a movie discussion episode, we kind of go through and do a plot summary about it. And I'm going to do a little bit of that, but this is pulling so heavily from the book that you could almost listen to our book plot episode, and the only difference is that like 60% of it got cut out. I actually read like it throughout it. Almost all of the dialogue is a 1-to-1 lift from the book. Like, it's just quoting the book. It doesn't change any of the dialogue. Really, the biggest difference is there's less murder that takes place in the whole, and there's less on-screen violence in general. Like, a lot of the women in the book that die still die in the movie, but you don't necessarily see all of them get killed, and you don't see all of the like particularly heinous stuff that Patrick Bateman does to them.
Yeah. And there's also like less just offensiveness as a whole. Like there's an occasional like slur or word that we shouldn't really be using in the movie, but not a lot.
I think that they skip the entire scene where Bateman is on a date with his ex and has her read a poem where he's written just racial slurs into a poem. And so you skip some things like that just to kind of... I mean, presumably, and it would not surprise me, it makes sense, if all of that stuff got included in the movie, it would just be an X-rated movie. Like, you wouldn't be allowed to go and see it in a normal movie theater. But still, to talk about the plot a little bit, it's 1987. You're following Patrick Bateman, who is a 27-year-old upwardly mobile, rich Wall Street bro who works at his dad's company, and he's being played by Christian Bale. And you are following him as he goes through his life with his circle of various friends, along with his fiancée Evelyn, who's played by Reese Witherspoon. So shout out for everyone who loves Reese Witherspoon. There's a lot of big names in this movie. She's one of them. Yeah. And for the most part, just like in the book, we're starting out with following Pat Bateman throughout his day-to-day life of going to various clubs and restaurants and hanging out with friends who are saying horribly misogynistic things and occasionally racist or anti-Semitic things. And early on is when we get the very famous Pat Bateman skincare routine scene where he walks you through all of the various balms and stuff that he's using in order to maintain his appearance, that is shorter than it is in the book, but obviously still incredibly over the top. A fun fact at this point, while he was filming the movie and prepping for all the filming, like through the entire shooting process, Christian Bale actually followed this skincare routine every day in order to like stay in character and That's also to maintain that healthy glow. So if you see Christian Bale in this movie and to go, damn, his skin looks great.
He looks really good.
It worked. The skincare routine worked. Maybe you should actually try it.
Yeah. But don't be weird about it. Like, try it, but like...
Yeah, try it, but be really sarcastic about it. Like, let everybody know that you're doing it in an ironic way.
Yeah.
You learn pretty quickly that Pat Bateman is having an affair on Evelyn with her best friend Courtney. Evelyn is having an affair with Timothy, who his name got changed in the movie. It is Timothy Price in the book, but in the movie it's Timothy Bryce, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe there's like somebody with that name who would have been pissed if they used his name, but Timothy Bryce is having an affair with Evelyn, and Courtney, while he's having an affair with her, is also in a relationship with a guy called Lewis Carruthers, who I really like in a lot of the plot synopses. Whenever Lewis Carruthers is mentioned for the first time, a lot of them have in parentheses, Bateman's other colleague, Lewis Carruthers, parentheses, who is slightly gay.
Slightly. The guy, who, I don't know who the actor is that played Lewis, but excellent job.
Yeah. I liked his character a lot. I thought that he played that role really well of being a effeminate business bro. One of the early things that differs from the book is we start... I mentioned them in our analysis and plot summary episodes, but throughout the book there are these various scenes of introspection for Pat Bateman, where he's basically talking to the audience about how he's not really a human person. He's actually a huge piece of shit who sucks all the time and will always suck. And instead of like waiting on those, pretty early on, it starts hitting you with a narration over the top by Pat Bateman, where he's just quoting those lines at you, so that like right off the bat, you've got your feet on the road. You know what this is about, and it's just blatantly telling you 5 minutes in, I have no soul. I have no soul.
It moves really quickly. Much more quickly, which makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah. Like, it feels very similar to the book in the sense that the book, none of the chapters necessarily connect to one another. You just have a chapter and then immediately you're jump cutting an indeterminate amount of time to another scene where something else is happening. That's the same in the movie, except the number of scenes is just shorter and smaller. But a lot of jump cutting from one thing to the next thing. Like, this is a slightly over 2-hour movie and it does not feel it at all. Like, it's really quick to watch. After introducing all the characters is when we get the famous business card scene where all of the characters are showing each other their various business cards, and Bateman gets so pissed off at how nice Paul Allen's business card is that he has to go out and murder a homeless man and curb stomp the man's dog. Which is not a great scene to watch, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Also of note, because he's such an infant child baby in this, I didn't even really recognize him at first. Paul Allen is played by Jared Leto, which is crazy to me. He does not look like the Jared Leto that I know, because I think that he really popped off after this. But yeah, a very baby-faced Jared Leto is in this movie. After murdering the homeless man, we jump to the Christmas party scene where Bateman makes dinner plans with Paul, and Paul starts mistaking him for Marcus Halberstam, a different person. They basically immediately cut to them going to the scheduled dinner, with Bateman getting Paul drunk, taking him back to his apartment, and then murdering him with an axe.
That scene, and I've actually seen clips of that, even though I hadn't seen the movie before this watch, but like I'd seen clips of it. That was so funny. Like I see the hype for that scene. Like, it was hilarious.
It's a really fun and funny scene. That's another thing. Like, I feel like the movie as a whole leans into the humor of the book a lot more, and I think it's more easily able to do that by cutting out a lot of the more brutal scenes, where it, like, by not forcing you to deal with both ends of the spectrum, it's a lot easier for you to recognize, oh, that was really funny, the way that he put on a raincoat and chopped Paul Allen to death.
Yeah, and the way that, like, there was paper and sheets covering all of his furniture, and like, and then the part where he's talking about Huey Lewis in the news, and then he, like, what does he say? It's like fit to. So he, like, quotes one of the songs or something, and he's like dancing back and forth as he's like prepping to murder this guy.
That's another choice that the movie makes that I really thought was good, where the book has these chapters where after something brutal, Patrick Bateman just describes his feelings about some sort of a band from the 80s that he really loves. And instead of having those scenes siloed off, they made the choice to have him monologuing about bands in the middle of other things. And so he's just monologuing about Huey Lewis and the news while he's putting on his little raincoat and he's getting his axe and he's getting ready to murder somebody. And I thought that added a lot of humor to it that would have been easier to miss when you're reading the book. So obviously, after he has murdered and disposed of Paul Allen, he does the going to Paul Allen's apartment and making it look like Paul Allen has gone on a vacation to London. Right after that is when we get the scene of the private investigator coming to Bateman's office. Private investigator played by Willem Dafoe. And he starts questioning, where were you that night? Do you know anything about Paul Allen? And it's the same as it is in the book, where it seems questionable as to whether or not he's actually suspected of a crime or how much the private investigator really believes that Paul Allen is dead, or if he did just go to London. Right after that is when we get the first scene with Christy the prostitute and Sabrina the escort, who he brings back to his place, and then he monologues about Genesis while getting them to undress and then have a threesome together, which is another really fun scene that is played for laughs. He then lets them leave his apartment, and it's very obvious that things have gotten a little bit violent. Just like in the book, you don't really see that, but you just see that they've got some scratches, and they didn't necessarily enjoy themselves while they were there. It is after this that we have the scene in the restaurant where Lewis Carruthers shows off his new business card, and it's nice enough that it pisses Bateman off enough that he tries to kill Lewis in the bathroom, which then Lewis interprets as Bateman coming on to him, and we find out that Lewis is in fact, if not gay, at least bisexual, and has a thing for Bateman, which makes Bateman incredibly uncomfortable, and he ends up just fleeing in disgust. There's then a really quick murder of a model that happens, and then he invites Jean, his secretary, out for lunch. They go to his apartment beforehand, and while they're just like chatting, Bateman is pulling various instruments out as though he's planning on murdering her. He ends up holding a nail gun to the back of her head without her noticing. And then Evelyn calls on the phone and leaves a message, and that kind of deflates the tension because Jean very clearly is uncomfortable with the fact that this would probably lead to an affair if it were to continue. And then you kind of have this mixed messaging going on where Jean is like, should I leave? And Bateman's like, well, if you don't leave, you might get hurt. And Jean interprets that as, oh, emotionally hurt. But Bateman really does mean, I might murder you if you hang out any longer. There's then another threesome scene with Christy and Bateman's friend Elizabeth. While they're having the threesome, Bateman murders Elizabeth and Christy runs for her life. After running for her life, she ends up getting out of the apartment, running down a flight of stairs, and Bateman drops a running chainsaw from like the 8th floor to hit her as she gets to the bottom of the stairs, which is a ridiculous scene, but yeah. I thought that it was a fun one.
Yeah, I would say like that scene, especially before she gets out of the apartment, is like the most graphic of all the scenes because she's like fleeing from room to room trying to get out, and you're seeing all the like dead bodies in this apartment
which is Paul Allen's apartment, we should mention. Yeah. Like he's doing all of this in Paul Allen's, not his own. But yeah, there's lots of dead bodies and a severed woman's head and stuff written on the wall in blood and things like that. So
it's like, it's graphic in that way. The murder itself isn't, I mean, it's gross, but it's like kind of silly. So it's
it's like it cuts to her running, it cuts to him dropping the chainsaw, and then it cuts back to her dead body. So it's not like super graphic, but yeah. After this, we get the like running from the cops scene where he goes to an ATM to take out some cash, and there's a kitten there, and he holds a gun to the kitten for no reason, and an old lady's like, what the hell are you doing? And he just shoots and kills the old lady. Then he's running around and he's murdering people trying to escape, and this is when he calls and leaves a message with his lawyer saying, hey, I've done some really fucked up stuff. Like, I've murdered probably like 20, 40 people. Here's where I've left their bodies. It's pretty bad.
He also, this like happened in the book as well, but like if you weren't already clear on the unreliable narrator portion by this point in the movie, he kills the doorman of this building and then runs back by and the doorman's there again. Yeah. And it's like, wait. So that was quick, but I was like, oh.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on, just like really quick things going on in the background. The next day after he's gone on his murdering spree, he goes back to Paul's apartment, obviously expecting it to still be full of dead bodies and decomposing corpses, and instead finds that it's vacant and for sale, has recently been repainted and remodeled, and the real estate agent asks him to leave. He goes and meets all of his friends for lunch, while back at the office, Gene finds his notebook for his planner, and instead of actually having schedules, he's just been drawing a bunch of graphic, sexual, and violent imagery inside of it.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything to actually do, so that's fine.
Yeah, no. His job is sit there, hang out.
Doodle.
The restaurant that he goes to, he ends up seeing his lawyer there, goes up and talks to his lawyer about the message, and it's very clear the lawyer thinks that he's someone different and doesn't believe the message because he sees Bateman as too much of a goody two-shoes to have ever done any of the things that are being confessed to in the voicemail. And then ends up also revealing that he has personally had lunch with Paul Allen multiple times in London in the past 10 days. So it doesn't make any sense that Paul Allen got killed by Bateman, because he's still alive. They've had lunch together. Bateman goes back, sits down with his friends. There has a final voiceover narration where he's talking about how he's going to continue to escape all of the punishment that he deserves, and says this confession has meant nothing. And that's the movie.
There is no exit.
So what did you think about the movie as a whole? And then what did you think about the movie in comparison to the book?
I really liked the movie.
Okay.
I watched it with a friend who has already seen it a few times, and she really likes it as well. And we had a little movie night out of it. We had popcorn and wine and stuff, so that was fun. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I thought something I said in one of plug for our social media, one of the TikToks that or videos I've posted is that it's like peak satire, but I did think that I was like, this is excellent satire. Like, this is just, it's exaggerated, it's funny, I'm getting into that, but it's just so good. I think that it was an interesting movie and that you could watch it multiple times and you would get different things out of it, and notice different things and think differently about like what it's trying to say. And I liked especially that it was like very digestible in terms of the violence. Like, it wasn't incredibly graphic. And for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't listened to our book episodes about American Psycho, that was my biggest issue with the book, is it was just so incredibly graphic that it was just hard for me to get past that to enjoy the book itself. And so I liked that better about the movie. And that's like a personal thing I get. Like, some people don't mind graphic violence, but it was just, most of the violence was actually funny or just kind of off screen. And so I liked it a lot more than the book. Like, I'd watch it again. I'd recommend it. Yeah.
Nice. So do you think that watching the movie in any way adjusted your feelings towards the book?
Well, I think the aspects I liked about the movie were also aspects I liked about the book. It's just that for me, the book was too much, and I didn't see that a lot of the language and the graphicness of it all and the like disgusting scenes, I didn't see that like that really served the book for me at least. And so it's kind of like a rare situation where I was like, I think the movie just like did the satire a bit better, because I feel like I got the same amount of like satire out of the movie that I did the book, but without the like, I don't want to read this. I will say that maybe like a critique that I'd have of the movie is that this didn't happen for me, and maybe that's because I read the book first, but I could see that it's like silly enough that like people wouldn't take it seriously enough to like get the weight of the satire, and maybe that's why we've ended up with people being like, yes, I love Patrick Bateman, like I want to be like him. Because you aren't seeing how bad of a guy he really is in the movie, because it's just like so silly. So that could be a critique, I would say.
That was something that I was going to point out, is like I feel like the people who really idolize Patrick Bateman are generally doing so from the movie perspective. And I think that that's because it's choosing to cut a lot of that excessively graphic violence out. It provides a lot less of the negatives of his characteristics than it does just like the grind set mindset kind of stuff. I still think that it's obviously satirical, and it is borderline inexcusable to get the wrong message out of it. Like, you should maybe go to school for how to watch a movie if you don't understand the point of this movie. But I do think that by cutting as much out as it does, which I totally understand why it did, it loses a little bit of the nuance of the critique. But I do agree that it maintains enough of the substance of the argument that it's making that it's still totally effective. Personally, I like the book a little bit more just because I think that it is harder to miss the point, and I just enjoyed the book, which is a personal choice, but I do think that it is a fun movie, and I would recommend to someone, if they are interested in it but they don't know if the book is going to be too much for them, I would definitely recommend, well, watch the movie, and if the movie is too much, don't read the book. But if you really liked the movie, maybe give the book a shot.
Something that like I was talking about with my friend that I watched it with is, she was saying the first time she watched it, she felt it was like more of a satire of the world they were living in. But then the second time she saw more of the satire around like Patrick Bateman himself and like who he is as a person. And I thought, and especially like with the unreliable narrator and is this guy in psychosis, is any of this actually happening? Like, once you really, like, maybe that was harder to get in the movie too, but I think it's kind of clear because it kind of like doesn't really make sense, everything that's happening. It's just so and so I think that is an interesting aspect of the movie, is that like I said, with multiple watches, like the first time you can be like, wow, this is crazy, like this, all of these people are just like rich and like this world is corrupt and but then the second time, if you focus more on like his character or a different character, like I think especially like you said, like it didn't feel like 2 hours, it didn't feel that long, so I feel like it's something you could watch multiple times and get different things out of it.
We'll add the caveat, though, that if you do choose to watch this movie multiple times, maybe don't talk about it too much, because people will take that as a red flag if your most rewatched movie is American Psycho.
Yeah. Maybe like just watch it once a year in October or something. And
make a annual tradition out of it.
But I thought that like the world itself was well done. And I particularly liked that scene before he kills the model or whatever, when he's talking to them and they're in this bar, and that's where the murders and executions line comes from. Like, I liked that scene. Like, I thought that was, I'm trying to think of movie terms, the setting and the, what is that called, the set. Like, I thought the set was like well done, and I liked that, and the way that like the waiters would speak to them, like it all really like it paralleled the book really well. And like I think that for the most part what I was picturing in the book when we were reading all these like different bar, club, restaurant scenes, like I think it looked basically the same to me in the movie, like what I was picturing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, it does a good job of giving you basically like a sampler platter for the book, where most of the main talking points in the book are represented and most of the important scenes are in there. The only thing that it just totally skips over, which I really wish that it had done a little bit because it's a fun part of the book, is he doesn't spend basically any time just listing what everyone in the room is wearing and comparing comparing fits. I think that that's a really important part of the book to talk about the theme of commodification resulting in surface level experiences with life as opposed to a more in-depth experience with life. And it really kind of misses a little bit of that critique by skipping that, I feel. But also I understand that having Christian Bale read a list of suits would probably not make for the best of television. But that was the one, I'm sure there's other stuff if I thought about it, but one of the big things that is like a through line throughout the book that it really doesn't touch on at all in the movie.
Yeah. I think there could have been one scene where like it was in his head, but like it showed him like in a restaurant or somewhere and panning from person to person, and like it could have been done in a way that wouldn't have been boring.
That is one of the like fun facts of the movie that I found while I was looking into it, though, is that they did have some trouble getting luxury brands to agree to appear on screen. So apparently Cerruti gave permission for Bateman to wear their clothes, but he could not wear their suits when he was killing anyone, so he had to wear a different brand. Rolex said that everyone in the movie could wear one except for Bateman, which is why when he's in bed with the women, instead of the line being "don't touch the Rolex," he says "don't touch the watch," because he's not allowed to wear a Rolex. Originally, Calvin Klein was going to provide all of the underwear, but they pulled out last minute, and so Perry Ellis provided it. And then one that I really enjoyed was that whenever Bateman is hauling the body of Paul Allen out of the apartment, he says the overnight bag is Jean-Paul Gaultier, which originally that was supposed to be a Comme des Garçons overnight bag, but they said, absolutely not. You cannot use our overnight bag to haul a dead body.
That's so funny. Whoa, yeah. They also, he did like say like, oh, I need to return some videotapes, and he was watching them or holding them at times, but there wasn't that scene like in the video store where he's all like neurotic about the videotapes, and not that it had to happen, but
it was like a part of it, but it wasn't like a huge part of it. There is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre scene with it playing in the background. There's several moments like that where there's something happening in the background that's a reference to other horror movies and stuff. Apparently the most expensive part of production was getting all of the rights to the songs that it drops throughout the movie, which makes sense. There's a lot of like 80s hit classics that are done throughout various scenes of murder and violence. Another fun fact that I read that I wanted to talk about was Christian Bale obviously ended up getting this role. That's why we see him in the movie. But before he officially accepted it, he insisted that he needed to meet with Bret Easton Ellis to make sure that Bret Easton Ellis was comfortable with him playing the part. And so they met for lunch, and Christian Bale showed up in character and introduced himself as Pat Bateman. And apparently after 10 minutes, Bret Easton Ellis begged him to stop because it was freaking him out too bad. He said that his hands were shaking, and it was the single creepiest moment of his life.
It's like, you wrote this character, my man.
Yeah. Which I think that it also, like, it goes to show of, like, just because an author writes something doesn't mean they necessarily agree with it or like it. Like, he wrote Pat Bateman as a guy that would be the worst to hang out with, and then when forced to hang out with him, he's like, oh, this is the worst. Please stop.
It's like, I can't. That's funny.
But I think that that's a good overview of the book, as well as in the way that it relates to the movie, and a good discussion about the movie. I think we can get into some, like, final reviews and whether or not we would recommend it and stuff like that. But before we get to our reviews, I've got some reviews from the general public that we're going to talk about. So I've gone to Letterboxd, the movie reviewing platform, and I have found 4 half-star reviews, because they let you do half-star reviews. So these are 4 people that hated this movie, and let's see what they have to say about why they hated it.
Okay. Okay, so this review says, it's just one sentence. So this is what guys like: a men that runs buddy naked to kill women and has a 10-step skincare routine.
This is what the boys like. I mean, I briefly mentioned it while we were talking about it, but Christian Bale does look stupid good in this movie. He's crazy hot in this movie.
Yeah.
So maybe you should follow that 10-step skincare routine, because it works.
And his workout routine, like, I don't know, spend 3 hours in the morning.
I saw a thing about it where he talked about once the production was over, he was able to stop with the workout routine and stuff. And he had an interview where he said he was so fucking sick of eating chicken breast. Because I think that was just all he ate for months was just chicken breasts.
Yeah.
This next half-star review says, I don't get people who like this movie. Those Sigma guys just liking that movie just because he's psycho and blah blah. Like, what the fuck is the story? Why the fuck only Patrick is the only character that actually acts? Even the Emojis movie is better than this.
The Whoa. What? Emojis movie mentioned?
Fuck American Psycho. I got Emojis movie at home.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this person says, this movie sucked. The book is just as bad. Oh, they read both. If anyone ever showed me this movie and forced me to watch it, I would kill them. End of story. The plot sucked too. It's just about a middle-aged white man who had nothing better to do than fuck women. Oh. Well, so you're not okay with that, but you're okay with the murder, it seems.
Okay with murdering people, and if you make them watch the movie again, they'll murder you. But we gotta stop letting middle-aged white men fuck women. Also, calling somebody who's 27 middle-aged is kind of crazy, too.
Yeah, this person is interesting.
This last half-star review is probably what the average incel on Twitter think they look like when saying the most despicable thing about women. Beside the obvious, the fact that Patrick looks like he's hiding a frog inside his mouth every time he's not speaking made this a very uncomfortable movie to watch for me. But it did make me giggle how everyone's just got weirded the fuck out whenever he speaks. Christian Bale does spend the whole movie mogging. He does kind of look like he's got a frog in his mouth the whole time.
I honestly can see, like, why Bret Easton Ellis was like, I need you to stop. Like, I can't spend another second with you acting like this.
Yeah, he is an uncomfortable guy to look at and be around. This movie really was the one that jump-started Christian Bale's career. From, like, before this, he was mainly a supporting role, and then after this is when he started getting more and more leading roles, which eventually led to him, like, winning an Oscar and stuff like that. So And I think that it tracks because he's really good in this movie, in my opinion. When I was looking at fun facts, so this is a little bonus game, I guess. When I was looking at fun facts, one of the things that I really like doing is IMDb has got the trivia section on it, and you can sort the trivia from most interesting to least interesting, or you can sort it from least interesting to most interesting. And so I like looking to see what the least interesting piece of trivia is about a movie. The least interesting piece of trivia about American Psycho is that this is the first time Willem Dafoe stars alongside an actor who would go on to portray Batman. Because Christian Bale goes on to play Batman, and then later on, Willem Dafoe performs in The Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson, who is the second person that then went on to play Batman. So there you go, the least interesting fact that I could find about American Psycho. But, Sid, did you have any closing thoughts about this movie? Or I guess we've kind of talked about the books too. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about either the book or the movie to close out this saga with Bret Easton Ellis until we return to cover other books of his in the future, possibly?
I'm never reading the book again. And maybe I'll watch the movie next year, though. So those are my final thoughts. I really liked the movie. So I'm glad I've done this. I'm glad I'm educated on the world of American Psycho now. So
yeah, and I mean, the silver lining is that this is almost assuredly the most violent book that we're going to read for the podcast. Yeah. So, you know, you've got that behind you. Everything will be easier from this point forward. But speaking of things getting easier from this point forward, I can't think of a harder vibe shift than going from American Psycho to Northanger Abbey.
Jane Austen. I needed a palate cleanser. I needed something so different. But it's still, you know, gothic. So it's still spooky-ish, kind of.
Yeah, ish. We'll talk more. If you want to hear about Northanger Abbey, come back next week, because next week we're going to be doing a plot summary. That is a book that Sydney is leading, so you get to listen to Sydney talk us through what this book is about. So if you have already read it, you can get brushed up on it before we talk about analysis stuff. And if you haven't read it, you don't have to, because we're going to tell you about it. But in the meantime, before you come back to listen to us talk about a Jane Austen book, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening. Tell all your friends about the show where we are reading every satirical book ever written, and maybe watching every satirical movie ever written. Who's to say? I don't know how many there are or when we're going to run out. But our intro and outro are both remixes of the song 48 by Cullah. And Sydney, if people want to talk to us not in the comment section of this episode, where can they find us?
Yeah, we are on Instagram at the Satire Fire Pod, POD, and we are on TikTok and Blue Sky, as well as YouTube at the Satire Fire. And love your comments, love your messages, love likes, follows, subscribe. Whatever you want to do, we appreciate it. And soon enough, if you are a loyal listener and you're like, who are these people and why do they never introduce themselves on their social media? Soon enough, we'll be doing that. So you can learn more about us, because I realized that we basically have never done that. So be on the lookout.
But, like I said, thanks for listening, and be sure to support your local library. This has been the Satire Fire, and I am Samuel.
I'm Sydney.
Bye.
Bye.
I just about come to the end of the road. Here, I've just about lost patience with you people. You get your ass out into the mountains or someplace, or hide in there and watch that damn tube. But if not, fuck it. I'm done. In fact, my sermon